Hello. There's a question which has popped up on one of the social pages which was asking, can I record CV trigger data to Midi? And the answer is yes, you can. There's a couple of different methods of doing this. The method I'm actually going to demonstrate today is using the old-fashioned method, which would be using a CV or a loopback, Midi loopback method. So we're going to be using the CV data, sending it out an EMI to a loopback, bringing it back via a service controller and recording it in the sequencer. As I say, there's a couple of different methods, but this is the one I'm actually going to demonstrate today. So I think the person on the forum actually has an A-list drummer and he has it wired up to a Kong. So here's my A-list, and I'm assuming he's got these kicks or his snares and all the rest of it, and he's going back into the gates in, and so off you go, so you can play both of them at the same time. And that's the data he wishes to record. So it's quite straightforward. I'm going to show this quite quickly to start with, and then I'll go through it in detail. So as I say, the first thing I'm actually going to pump in here is an EMI. And so under Reason Devices, here's our external MIDI instrument, which is going to pump that in. I'm now going to take the gate in and put it on where the kick is. Okay. What I'm going to do now is just give this MIDI focus here, and I'm going to record. Okay. And it's that straightforward. Stop that a second. I'm going to turn that off so there's no data going on here. The only thing I'm going to do, because I didn't give it any note data, is just put this onto the correct drum, and we're off and away. And to prove, obviously, this is really playing, let's put a little drum roll at the end. Quite straightforward, that really, isn't it? As I said, that was the easy way of doing it, and I wanted to demonstrate that is because so many people shy away when people start talking about MIDI loopbacks. They think, oh, it's very hard and it's complex. Once you've set up a MIDI loopback, it's set up. Yeah, you can reuse it in any new project. You don't have to go back and reset it up again. So once you've downloaded the little app, installed it, set it up, it is that quick when you wish to record CV data. And as I say, it doesn't have to be the A-list drummer, or you don't have to be going back to the Kong. It can be from doing anything. So let's just take it step by step and see what we've actually got going on. So the MIDI external instrument here, if I use my drop down box, here's all different controllers or MIDI ports I can use, and I'm using this particular loopback MIDI port here. If I actually go and bring up the bit of software that I'm using, and it's called Loop Midi, is they're very tiny programs because they're not doing much apart from taking the MIDI in and just bouncing it back out again. And as I say, what we're doing is we're bouncing this MIDI out, it's bouncing off this program, and then we're bringing it back in via a service controller. Yeah. So a lot of people, when they start talking about MIDI as well, it's quite interesting that they always tend to go to the hardware and they start looking at this MIDI devices and they're going, oh, why isn't this working? It's like, because it's got nothing to do with it. You know, this is really for hardware stuff coming in. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a surface controller coming back in, and here is my surface controller right here. And if I didn't have it, I'm just going to add a new one. Under other, you've got different types, doesn't really matter. Might be no keyboard, it depends what data you're bringing in, how you wish to manipulate it. But under here is the important bit, so there's my loop MIDI port, what you saw. So my loop MIDI port's here, my loop MIDI port's matched there, and obviously I can only select them because it's set up in my loopback MIDI software. Don't forget you can actually rename these, so you can give these different names. I tend to, when I set up new service controllers, make it the same name as my MIDI loopback port. I am going to click cancel because obviously I've already got it set up. And really, so it's effectively like me playing an external keyboard to make the Kong play. We're now using, obviously it's coming from the A-list to the MIDI out, bounce back, and then it's this service controller which is allowing the Kong to play and obviously allowing me to record as well. One thing you may have noticed though is we've got no note data set up at the moment. Yeah. So I'm just going to delete this out, and we're going to look at adding some note data, and I'm also want to look at once we've got the MIDI data. Okay, this is quite straightforward for Kong, but I'm also going to look at another method of how can we convert MIDI data into CV, which we can then use on any devices. So let's go through them two stages first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add some note data to this device. And to do that, there's a great free utility from Aftermath, the CV generator. I use it all the time. Works brilliantly in combinators because you can have your 4 extra knobs going into your CV in to give you extra knobs on the combinators. And I'm simply going to take the CV out and into the CV in of my external instrument. And the note we wish to play, so pad 1 is C1, which happens to be 36.8 around about there on this little device. And some people might be going, how do you know when you get to 36.8? Well, because you can see I've just nudged the device and it didn't change, so I might nudge it a little bit more. It's just gone up to 37 and I want to accept that. And I will bring back an analyzer and put it on this little device and show you what's actually happening in the back end. So people get confused that when they see these devices and they go, oh look, it's saying 0, 1, 2, to 127. CV isn't from 0 to 127. CV's from 0 to 1. And it's down to about 4 or 5 decimal places, but we'll get into that into a minute. So now I've got some note data going into this device. So theoretically, as I say, if I go back to here, you can see there's no data here whatsoever. If I hit play, in fact, so I'm going to go back to my loop, and it would help as well if I took off the mute. I'm now playing my Kong, and if we go back to the rack and flip the rack, see there's no gate in. So as I say, this is talking to the external MIDI device, which is going to the loopback, which is coming back to the service controller, because this has got the focus. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create myself a Thor, and you can see it's now getting MIDI data in, because it's coming back via that service controller. So it's just like, as I say, like you're playing an external instrument. That's what it's exactly doing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to record that same data into Thor. As you can see, there it is. There's that data. We got it here. I'm actually going to put, like I did before, I'm going to put a little drum roll at the end. I'm going to put a drum roll at the end just to prove a small little, I wouldn't call it an issue, but things you have to bear in mind when you're dealing with this sort of data. And in the case of Thor, what's going to happen is I'm going to use this as pure gate data, and gate data is either on or off. So it's on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And when you get to the end, it's going to go on. So even though they're different notes, it's going to treat that all as one note. So if we go back to the rack, and then we're going to take our CV1 out and we're going to pump that into our gate in. The other thing what we're going to have to do, obviously, is take that gate information and we're going to pump that out to CV1. I think the only other thing I want to actually do here is just get rid of that. So you can see it's hitting that note and nothing, it's just the one note. Yeah. We can obviously change that from here very easily just by putting in a small gap. Yeah. Yeah, so we've got ourselves a small gap. So now it's got its chance to say on off, on off, on off. Even though it's a very small off, that's all you need. You just need a tiny gap. But as you can hear, it's very plain, it's very flat, it's ignoring all the velocity data. Okay, we can fix that as well. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now say I'm going to scale it by my gate. So I'm going to want this to work That gate's working, and we want the velocity data. And you can hear straight away we've now got velocity data. So effectively, as I say, we've done a few different things here. We've taken CV from this device, we've then recorded it into Midi. We're now taking this Midi device, MIDI data, and converting it to CV data. As I say, don't get stuck on the fact we've got an A-list and a Kong. They can be any device which outputs CV, and they can be any device which can accept CV. So that's the important thing. And then you realise this is actually quite a powerful setup, and it's worth, as I say, taking the time setting up the Midi loopback. As I say, it doesn't take a lot of time. It takes a few minutes to download it, a couple of minutes to load it up, and that's it. Off you go. So as I said earlier, I said I was going to have a quick look at this and see exactly what is going on with this little device here. Again, there's another little freebie which is fantastic from Pong Software, which is this analyzer. I'm going to put it onto RAW, then you can see really what's going on. I'm just going to use that one there. And as you can see, well, we've got 5 decimal places there. So as I move my thing up, we're moving up. So when I get up to 36, I'm going to move up to 36 because I said 36.8 is what you need for C1. So there's 36 and we're on B0. You can see here, B0. So we're on 2812. And if I just move this a fraction more, still on 36, you can see I jumped up and you can see my note jumped up. So that's what I'm saying about controls. Some controls have that little bit more finite stuff going on which you don't realise in the background. So you can move things around and it's still in the same number. So CV itself is great. As I say, it goes from 0 to 1. Now, little gotchas about using MIDI loopbacks. Some people are going to go say, oh, there's latency, there's latency. It's not an issue. It's such a small amount of latency. If it really does bother you, you can just go in onto the notes. Let's have a quick look and see what we've got going on here. And you're probably going to get latency anyway if you've done certain recording. We've got such small amounts. Oh, look at that, it's out by 0.1. So there's little things going on here. So the latency, and it's nothing. So you can just take them and nudge them back if you really wanted to clean them up. Personally, for me, my hearing's not that great, so I won't be able to hear the beats off. If you've got a really, really tight beat, maybe it might be a bit of an issue, but most of the time that's not going to be an issue. But as I say, you can highlight and you can nudge these backs and forwards. The other big difference is, as I was just saying, CV goes from 0 to 1, but it's up to then 5 decimal places. Midi's from 0 to 127. So we've now lost our scalability. So as soon as we go take CV into Midi, we're kind of stepping the data. It's still in a nice range. If it's for anything to do with gating or triggering, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter that we've lost that finite or that fine adjustment. It really doesn't matter at all. And you're going to find for a lot of things, it's not going to matter. Where it really does matter, then you need to start being a bit more clever on how you're going to get data in and out, and that's really for another video. But one thing you should start looking at maybe is this pitch bend here, because this pitch bend data it gives a lot more, as you can see the numbers already as it's going up and down. Yeah, so you can actually use that to your advantage to get a little bit more finite data in and out. As I say, that's another story, but basically that's it really. That's a simple way of how we're going to get some CV triggered data, record it down into Midi, manipulate the Midi, take the Midi, and we can convert it back to CV. In this particular case, you can virtually record straight into the Kong and then manipulate your data or your patterns there. And for other cases, yeah, I like to use a Thor to get that data back out again. And it is a simple case of that's the sort of setup you need, very straightforward, and Bob's your uncle. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, and happy CVing.